What's up, everyone? Just gonna roll right into this video. I'm sitting in my Forester, and I've got what I think is a CV shaft noise in the right front. When I initially bought this thing and was driving it, in the first little bit, I'm taking really quick corners, maybe a little bit too hard on the throttle, I would get the tiniest little bit of noise, I think, in the right front. And over time, I guess it's progressively gotten worse, even though it hasn't really made any more noise. And then I parked the thing, and then since taking it out, I have completely forgot about this CV shaft noise, and it really hasn't made any noise up until now. So last week, or just a few days ago, I kind of just going for my normal drive, and it is so noisy that I can't believe how noisy it is in that short of time. So I just want to go for a quick drive. We're going to try and have a listen to it, and then I've got shafts that should fit, and I am planning on taking this on pretty good trip, so that's something I don't want to do before I leave. So just going to go down the road, and we're going to try and see if we can hear this thing clacking away. Okay, here we go. And I think you can hear it on throttle. It's on load. Do this window. So, I mean, it is just snapping away. And I've already checked the torque on the wheels. It seems to load up a little bit more when I crank the wheel to the right. But it's really on throttle. And it's possible it's still something else. I mean, that could be a brake pad snapping away in the bracket or something silly. Took that a little bit too hard. Yeah, because like there's no noise right there, just backing up, so. Still there, but it's got a little bit quieter just taking those hard turns. Maybe that's some grease moving around in the joint and trying to quiet it down a little bit. So I'm pretty sure it's on the right front. That's where I've got to attack this noise, so that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to pull the Forester inside and try and have a quick look, and then dig out a used shaft and see if I can get it to work in there. Another thing, I've been driving this for a few days, and the check engine light is still out. No problem with that O2 sensor, so I think I'm pretty good there. So yeah, I'm going to pull this in and we'll go take a look at it. Okay, so I've got the Forester inside, jacked up, right front wheels up in the air, and I can feel a tiny little clicking into it. So the way I go about checking this usually, and a lot of times you can't actually feel the play in a CV shaft until you have it out of the vehicle and you're articulating the joint. But right front wheel up in the air, I will start giving it just tiny little spins back and forth, just a little rocking motion. And while doing that, I'll have my hand on the actual drive shaft. And if I can move the wheel and the shaft doesn't move, there's obviously play in that outer joint, and that's usually where the play is in the outer joint. So I'm going to set the camera there. You probably won't get to see very much, but hopefully you can see the wheel turn and the shaft not. Yeah, so it's possible even the sway bar link and stuff's in the way here, but the shaft is up and behind here, and just putting my hand on it and just moving that wheel, I mean, you can hear the clicking. But that amount of movement, I can't actually really feel the shaft move at all. Let's see if I can do it here. Yeah, so just this little bit of rocking motion, there's no shaft movement at all. I can see the outer joint move, but the shaft is not turning. So the outer joint definitely has play. It's the cause of the noise, and it needs replacement. So I really just expected that I was just going to get a used drive shaft from my stockpile and throw it in here, but I came to realize that the Forester has the newer style
CV shafts with the output shaft directly on the CV, whereas the old style, the output shafts were actually stuck into the differential and the axles went over top of them, and then you put a roll pin through them to hold them there. So I've had to order a shaft. It shouldn't take too long to get here, and as soon as it does, I'm going to whip it in. In the meantime, I've kind of soaked down the ball joint and everything down there, just because I'll probably take it apart from there. I actually have a replacement ball joint to put back in, and I probably will go about doing that, and then that'll all be done for my trip. But yeah, so I've got to wait a few more days, and then as soon as that shaft comes in, I'm gonna get back on it. Okay, so it's a few days later. I've got a replacement shaft to install. I did order this online, so it took a few days to get it. But this is the main difference. So this little piece of shaft right here on the older style cars, so pre 2004 anyway, because that's what this thing is. This part of the shaft actually sits in the transmission, and then the CV connects to it, and you drop a dowel pin down through. So this is more like you know, just basic automatic transmission style. Pop out the shaft. This little C-clip on the end of the splines is kind of what retains it in there. As long as you get it to pop, it'll come right out. And Subaru is really smart with interchangeable parts. It wouldn't surprise me if this is the same as the automatic transmission CV axle, but I haven't actually double checked part numbers, and I'll do so. I'll drop it down in the description below, because it's possible, but you know, most of the time that's not the case. But Subaru is pretty smart like that. So now that I've got the shaft, I'm basically just gonna loosen the wheel, jack it up, start trying to get apart that ball joint. I'm gonna soak it in some more penetrating fluid, because I think I am gonna end up replacing it, and then I should just be able to pop the old shaft out and get the new one in. So I'll get set up and we'll start on it. Okay, so basically where I've started here is take the pinch bolt out of the knuckle. The head of it was quite rusted, but just pounding the socket onto it and then hitting it with the impact hammer, the impact gun, back and forth, just to start freeing it up. Because you don't want to twist the head off, or you don't want to round it. So just getting it to break free in the threads, and then once it started moving back and forth, then I just got it to wind out. Here I've decided what I like to do is take off the tie rod, and it just gives you extra swing to get the entire strut to come out. But the cotter pin, the whole thing was quite rusted, so I just kind of wire brushed it and then got some penetrating fluid in there. Started to try and hit it with a punch, and that wasn't going to work, so I had to drill that out. It would have been much easier just to crank that off and then go buy a tie rod, but I've already got the thing up on the jack stand, and I know the tie rod's good, so I literally drilled that out by putting the drill bit down the center of these cotter pins, and then just getting them loose enough that I was able to punch them out. And now I've got a really good hole, and I'll just do a quick more wire brush and I'll spin that off. If I've got to clean up the little bit of threads up here, not a problem, but I'll be able to reuse the tie rod. And then I've got to kind of do the same thing with the ball joint, but because we're replacing it, I'm just literally gonna crank it off. I don't need to worry about the cotter pin breaking off in it. We don't need to reuse it. So as you can see, I've got this all apart, and this particular job on this particular vehicle is not for the lighthearted. This took me quite some time and a lot of back-breaking work to get apart. The ball joint heavily corroded in along the pinch bolt where it mounted in, and even though I split the pinch apart a little bit with a chisel and had my pry bar in on the chain, putting my weight on the pry bar and striking the control arm with a 5-pound mallet, this was a very difficult thing to get apart. And I think if I do any in the future, I've seen Mr. Subaru's video where he's got the ball joint puller, and I don't think I'll even hesitate the next time. I'll just get the tool before I do another one, especially the other side on this thing. But 32 mil axle nut, and with the ball joint and tie rod disconnected, the the steering knuckle will pull out very easily. Just even pushing on the spline end of the CV shaft, it usually goes through. You can give it a couple little taps with the hammer, especially if you're just replacing it and getting rid of the old one. And then I actually went from the top side with my long pry bar and just kind of went down through where I did the O2 sensor last week and dropped it down in there, and just a little pop, and out came the CV. Now I'm going to take it over onto the bench, and we'll just have a little listen to it and kind of feel the play. Okay, here's the shaft out on the bench. Expect it to be an OEM original shaft, and right away, just rotating it, you can hear quite a bit of noise, but this is where it really is. So the in and out play on this thing is just completely garbage. I mean, when it's walking around, yeah, it's bad. I just can't believe that I drove it for that many months through all the way through the winter to the summer, and then it went like this. So just got to go ahead and install the new shaft. Like most CV shaft, I like to take the clip and turn it to the bottom side when installing, so it kind of falls down. Most of the clip falls down into the groove as you're installing it. Subarus also have a wheel seal for the shaft. So even though the bearing has its own internal seal, like all wheel bearings on press end bearings on cars do, Subaru puts an extra seal along the CV to keep water completely away from the shaft. They do it on the inside and outside, front and rear. So I like to take just a tiny fresh slick of little grease and put it on there, and then I'll take a little bit of anti-seize and just put on the splines to make sure that it comes apart in the future. And as you can see, I've got everything back together. I still want to put a little bit of paint on that bare metal. I've got new cotter pins, even for the tie rod here, which I like to put grease on to try and protect them a little bit and make them easier to come apart. Pinch bolts back in place, ball joints all tightened in. The axle nut is on. 140 foot-pounds is your torque, and don't forget to stamp in your nut. And that's basically it. I'm ready to put the wheel back on and go for a little drive. Okay, so I've just gotten back from going down the road. All the noise is gone, very quiet, no vibration, so that's going to be 100%, and it's a good thing because I'm literally just about to leave to go on this trip, just 2 days, and probably going to be editing this video and possibly uploading it while I'm gone. So kind of unexpected, and I'm glad that it happened before leaving. I would hate to be like halfway to my destination and then have to drive the rest of the way there and all the way back with that noise. That would be a little, maybe not nerve-wracking, because, you know, I've done worse, but still, it's not something you want to put up with when you're on a long highway drive. So there's only a couple little things I want to do. I want to give it a little cleaning on the inside, you know, just make it a little bit more fresh inside to drive it for this trip, and check all the fluids, obviously, tire pressures. I want to take a little extra oil with me because the head gaskets are seeping a little bit, and should be good. I don't think I'll have any problems. So hopefully I definitely get a lot of footage while I'm out there, and I'll make something when I get back. But if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.